Yes, so Constantly, we'd like to
I,
talk more about the autism project. So and uh, and your experience with going through having a child with autism and parenting. What sort of how did you come to the realization that your child suffered with autism?
um, Hi, Lisra. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is a topic I really love talking, especially that most parents who are raising children with autism, they they don't have that courage to speak up and talk about what they are going through. So this is really my favorite subject because this is something that I went through. So before I had my child, I worked with I was working with a charity that was looking after children with autism, and I kind of somehow knew some of the signs and some of the signs of autism. However, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just so keen in supporting these children. They were very lovely children, and I just wanted to know more how I can best support them. And before I could realize, my second child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4. So that's where my journey began. And as you know, autism is on spectrum, and the signs I've seen in the other children, it was probably maybe different from what I'm seeing on mine. But however, when he was diagnosed, I now started connecting dots because one of the things that was the biggest problem for him, he wasn't talking at the age of 4. So it was quite challenging. And he had some of the really, for me, I would say the severe behavioral autism, some of those signs of autism that are really quite challenging. He used to have this movement he was making with his hands and, going back and forth. And he wasn't cautious about his background. He used to hit his head. So it was quite really overwhelming for me that time. And I remember as soon as he received his diagnosis, I was very disappointed, and I didn't know what to do, although I've been supporting these children. But now when it comes to my own case, I didn't know what to do. And it was so overwhelming. And however, I just knew I still have to do something. I still have to help my son. But the only thing that I can tell you, to be honest, the depression kicked in because I just felt like my whole world just collapsed. I feel like something just left me and I didn't know what to turn left or right. I tried to seek some help. I didn't get the help I needed. And it's kind of like I needed to understand, is there any cure that could help my son? And what I was told is that there is no cure for this. And I was very disappointed. So I was like, how am I actually going to raise my son with everything he's doing? How am I going to manage the behavior? He was just like throwing everything in the house. He wasn't talking. And now I started visualizing actually how the future would be like for him and how the future is going to look like for me and for his siblings and for the whole family. And by that time, we were already having a very big challenging time because we were trying to find a way of managing him in the house and just to cope with what was happening. And his siblings were really finding it very difficult. Myself, I was already exhausted, and communication in the house we weren't communicating. It's like everyone was thinking about themselves. What's happening here? What's happening here? Everyone was very exhausted. So for me, that time, it was the most challenging time, having that diagnosis and without knowing what I need to do at that moment. And that was really the hardest moment I've ever faced in my life. Having a human being, a child that I feel like nobody in this world could able to help him with all the disease you've ever had in the world, with all the types of illness. But when it comes to him, there was nothing else could be done. And now it's me who is standing next, just in front of him, staring at him with all his behavior and feeling so overwhelmed, feeling like the world for me was too small, and it was just so difficult. So I am just here to talk about these things because another parent may be going through this kind of moment, or maybe they may be having some other different type of feelings. So that's why I'm here. I just want to be, I want to advocate for these children and for the parent as well who want to learn that different things that they can do to help their children.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you think that that this problem could affect parents' mental health, and how and in what ways? Because you mentioned that you were depressed at some point.
Yeah, definitely. This is maybe some parents may not realize that they are maybe developing a mental health problem, but you can easily get depressed, and depression is a part of mental health. And if you're not able to manage it very well, you can be affected by that depression. And also, the reason why I felt that way is because first I was in work. I was full-time employed, and I had to stop what I was doing. And my husband was the only one who could be able to sponsor all of us. And the money wasn't enough. And my son wanted some, like, more input. Like, I wanted really him to have like a speech language therapist who can attend to him. I wanted to have occupational therapists who can attend to him, all those kind of services. I wanted him to really have different services that will work with him, but I didn't have those resources, but because everything it had to be paid for. So those are kind of the challenges really I faced at that time. And because I wasn't able to meet any of them because of financial circumstances at that time, that was definitely something that really hit me big time, because I felt like that at that tender age, that's when my child needed all the support he can ever have, and I wasn't able to pay for them.
Okay. And do you think that the system supports parents enough now? Okay, at your point, you found that the system didn't have enough support. Do you think anything has changed for new parents?
So from what I know, and from different parents I've already spoken to in recent months, the system is still the same. Once your child is diagnosed, there is no support that is permanent for your child to receive. The only things that I know is that first, they will tell you that there is no cure for autism. And the input that your local council or you, depending where you live, I don't know, some people, they may not have actually this support I'm going to talk about. So if you don't have, I mean, that will depend where you come from, but from where I live, they will allocate to you, they will allow you for your child to have a speech language therapist. And probably that will be about 6 sessions. And if you can manage to get more, you will get another session, which about 12 sessions. And 12 sessions for a child who is non-verbal, it's almost nothing. You want someone who's gonna see your child throughout until they are able to speak. And your local council are not able to do this. They kind of introduce you to this kind of thing. Just, it's a kind of counseling, maybe I will say, just for you to make you feel relaxed that you're getting this support and things are going to change. Yes, of course, things are going to change. I don't know, because the children, these children depend on the level of their autism. So, but I can tell you that in 12 weeks, there is not much your child have learned from those 12 weeks. And I can't remember. And the other support probably they will tell you is that you need to apply for government support, which means your child will be labeled as disabled child. And so you're going to start receiving a disability income. And to be honest, for me, that really breaks my heart when I heard about my son receiving disability money. I was like, is my child disabled? This is how I felt at that moment. I rejected it. I said, my child is not disabled, and I didn't apply for those benefits. So, however, I'm not saying don't apply, because later I realized that I should have applied. It's just that kind of feeling you get for the first time, and you feel like, you know, for me, that's how I feel. Some people, when their children are diagnosed, they embrace it, they are rested, they are happy that their child have diagnosis. But for me, that was the beginning of not accepting that my child is disabled. I think that's the whole of that's where my son destiny changed. That was the beginning of changing my son's destiny, because I didn't ever want him to be called disabled child. So yeah, honestly, I think those are kind of a few support you can get in your local community, and some counseling if you're a parent and you feel like, you know, it's so much for you. You can also get counseling from your doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you, constantly about the disabled thing, because to me, a disabled person is somebody who can't do anything at all. And a child with autism has their own gift. And that doesn't mean that they're vegetable. They probably have challenges to deal with, like any disabled person. And the thing is, with this when we label somebody disabled, it seems like it's just a legal, it's a legal what do you call it? A legal label. But in the real term of the word, the real definition of the word, to me, it doesn't match. So you're quite right for that.
Yeah, because if you get to look at things, most people, when you hear someone is disabled, so which means you're unable to do something.
Mhm.
And for me, I didn't believe that completely my son is not going to, do nothing. And actually, only we need to be very careful with words that we all use around us, because if you say that someone is disabled, you actually putting a limitation on what that person can do. And so if you hear it as a parent, you will always have in your mind that your child have this type of limitation on what he can do. And that puts you in a position of how much you can actually try to expose your child to different things, because you already know your child has that limitation on what he can do. So for me, I didn't really want to feel like my child should be, that like my child will be very limited in doing different things. So that's why I rejected really like feeling like my child has that label as a disabled. So yeah, so that's me. I mean, people have different views, different feelings about this topic, but from my own point of view, that's how I felt.
And the final question, what would you advise parents who have a child or children with autism? What would you advise them how would you advise them to cope?
Well, the thing is, I wish what I know now that I knew it that time, but unfortunately, like some of us, we have to go through the process before we can get where we are. And the only thing I can tell to the parent is that if your child is diagnosed with the autism, that is not the end of the world. You shouldn't cry. I did cry, but please don't cry. There is no need to cry. But you are permitted. You are permitted to cry, because it's just one of these kind of things. But although even if you can cry, don't spend so much time crying. Start doing something that is more helpful for yourself, for the whole family, and for your child who is making you cry. Because to be honest, there's so much that you can do for your child to change the trajectory of your child's future. There's so much you can do. And until you realize that those things are there and you started doing it, then you can believe that there's so much to do. But what I can say is that if anyone who is listening to this, don't be disappointed that is the end of the world. Even if you believe that your child is disabled, I mean, you are permitted to believe that. And if you don't also believe, you are permitted to do that, because we all have different way we see things and how we feel about different things. But if you're a parent there who feels like you really want to do something about your child who's recently been diagnosed, or maybe been a couple years when your child is diagnosed, I just want to reassure you that there's so much you can do to help your child.
Thank you. Those were very good answers.
Thank you.
Right. So anybody who's listening, please subscribe, follow us, and share this information with someone who might be needing it. So bye for now, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.